Boker Tov, Moadim L'Simcha. Today's daf is Daf Nun Zayin about Mציעא, as we learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asun Batzar V'Shivya. We're up to the 7th line on the page. Ravami. No, Rav Yona rather, the 7th line, the next line. Rav Yona Makdeshus, Rav Yona Makdeshus. What are we talking about? The Mishnah said that there's no fraud on Avodim Shtoros, Karkos, and Ekdeshos. There's no fraud there. Now, the question we raised at the top of this page was, okay, does that mean that only if it's off by a sixth, that doesn't have to be repaid? But if it's more than a sixth, if you're cheated by more than a sixth, let's say you bought something that was worth 100, you paid 125, which we say bittul mekach, it's more than a sixth, and the whole deal is off. So what about hektish and karka? Is the Mishnah says ein lehem onah? So what does that mean? Doesn't mean when it comes to a sixth, if it was only cheated by a sixth, then it's not, that money doesn't go back. But if it was more than a sixth, then it does apply, even by hektish and karka. That was the discussion here. So Rav Yona referred to the case of hektish. Rav Yomi referred to the case of karka. They both said it in the name of Rav Yochanan. What did they say? Well, they both said the name of Rav Yochanan. Not like we said yesterday, the Psak Halacha is of the Rambam at least, and possibly Tosas too, that there's no bitul mekach. In other words, there's no meaning, there's no cheating when it comes to hektish or karka, whatever the price is, there's no cheating at all. That's not what we're saying here. They're both saying that only when it comes to a sixth, if the cheating is off by a sixth, less than a sixth remokel, if it's a sixth, nothing happens, just leave it. And if it's more than a sixth, then there would be betel, but there would be method. The deal would be off. Rav Yona is going on karka, is going on karka, and they both said in the name of Yochanan that there's no onah. The rule of a sixth doesn't apply. But if the cheating is more, if the fraud is by more than a sixth, then it does apply. So, but one said referring to hektish, that's Rav Yona. Rav Yomi said going to karka. One says on hektish, koshkin and karka. On hektish, who's being cheated? You're not cheating any person. God knows what you can't cheat hektish, right? You can't cheat hektish because God knows what's going on. There's no cheating there. So the one who says that even on hektish there is no that bittul mekach applies there too. If the fraud is by more than a sixth, certainly on karka where there's a person being cheated, there's an individual, a commoner being cheated. So the one who says it's going on hektish says that there is bittul mekach even by hektish, certainly on karka. Mandamar karka, the one who said though in the name of Rav Yochanan, right? Rav Yona said it's going on hektish, and Rav Yirmi said it's going on karka. Rav Yirmi said it's going on karka, that by karka there is cheating by more than a sixth, right? Then avala hektish low. Maybe by karka there is because you're cheating a person, but on hektish not. So we have a machlokas between Rav Yirmi and Rav Yona, what Rav Yochanan said, but they both maintain that not like the pshat in our Mishnah is that there is no fraud at all when it comes to hektish or karka. There is fraud if it's more than a sixth. One said only on karka, but on hektish he agrees there's no cheating there at all. In other words, whatever you cheated, it's not cheating. And the other one's going hektish and karka. Right? Hektish lo, kid Shmuel. Why is there no cheating when it comes to hektish? Like Shmuel says, Damar Shmuel, hektish shavamana. Let's say you gave something to Bedek Abayis, it was worth $100. Shechil shavaputa, and you redeemed it for a penny or two. Mecholo, it's considered mechol, even though you're not doing a nice thing. And we'll see there are at least Rabbana, you should make up the difference, but it's considered redeemed. In other words, if you had enough from that, you gave an item to the base of Mikdash, I don't know, a ladder worth $100, and now you redeemed it for a piece of wood that was worth a few pennies. So, and now you had enough from the ladder. That's not moel anymore. You're not considered. It's not sacrilege because the item was redeemed from hektish. Okay. That's where we have this machlokas. Again, la halacha could be different. La halacha could very well be, it seems from the Rambam, that both on karka and hektish there's no fraud at all, no matter how much it is. But that's not what Rabbi Yochanan is saying here. Tanan also, we learned elsewhere in Meila, brought down another place, Imoya Kodesh, Balmum, Yasalchul. Here's the deal. You can redeem something of Bedek Abayis just by redeeming it, as we just said. Let's say, though, you had an animal. You have an animal of hektish, and you say, Harezu Tmurasu, I want to, this is animal A. I'd like to be, I have a nicer one. I want B to take the place of A. What's the deal? They're both kadosh, right? That's tmur. You're not supposed to, so. The pasuk says, they're both hektish, right? You can't, if I say I want this to exchange for that one, I want it B to place the place of A, they're both hektish. You can't do that. Okay. Let's say I want B to be mechula. I want animal A is hektish, and I want it to be redeemed on B. I want it to be redeemed, like I'm redeeming it like for money or whatever, like bedek bias, but it's an animal that's supposed to be, that's kashim is that you're bringing as a carbon. You're bringing it as a carbon. So you can't do that. It doesn't work. The only time it works is if the carbon, the animal, has a mum. Then you could redeem it for money. That's what we say. You wait till it gets a mum and then you redeem it. If it doesn't have a mum, you can't redeem it. Oh, and not if it's for kashim mizbeach, not it's a short kesef or ace that's supposed to be brought as a carbon. You can only redeem it if it's bedek bias, you could redeem it for money. If it's bedek bias, if it's just something that belongs to hegdish. But if it's in kashim mizbeach, that it's an animal, it's going to be brought in mizbeach, you could only redeem it if it has a mum. Now, Tan Awesome, let's say you said, I'm redeeming B, animal A for B. I'm redeeming it for B. In other words, I want B to take its place. If I just say take its place, then they're both kaddish. But if I say I'm redeeming it, doesn't work at all unless A has a mum. So he says, if animal A that was already a kaddish had a mum, then yatsa l'chulin. Then the redeeming works. So A goes to chulin and B takes its place. But sarach lo lastos damim. What does that mean? But you have to make up the difference. If B was worth a lot less than A, you should make up the difference. So Rabbi Yochanan says yatsa l'chulin dvar Torah. It goes to chulin dvar Torah, but sarach lo lastos damim midrabanan. In other words, animal A was worth $100, and you redeemed it for animal B. Animal A had a mum, and you redeemed it for animal B, a smaller animal. Let's say the first one was a para, and a shore, an ox, and you redeemed it for a calf or for a smaller animal, right? Or a kefes or ace or a sheep, a lamb or a goat or whatever. It was worth a lot less. So it works. But midrabanan, you should make up the difference to hegdish. Rish Lakish Amar aftzor chlasus l'dam minator. No, minatorah. It's midaraisa, you have to make up the difference. You can't cheat. Now we're talking about cheating hegdish, right? So that's the fraud that we're talking about. Oh no. But my skin, what's the case? If the amount that you cheated hegdish, the amount that you're giving less hegdish now is just the amount of 1/6. Why would you have to make the amount of Torah? You have to make up the difference. Our Mishnah just said, we just had this Mishnah. Right? We just had that Mishnah. So those things, there is no MR there. So if you're talking about 1/6, how can Rish Lakish say, well, if you cheated hektish, you should make up the difference if it was 1/6? What do you mean? There is no 1/6 rule there. There is no. Ella must be where the cheating was not a 6, it was more than a 6. And what did Rabbi Yochanan say? We said it before. Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Yonah, and Rav Yomi both said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that if it's more than a 6, there is cheating, even by hegdish or by karka, right? Elamai, we speak about Ela Bitamek. We're talking about Bitamek, meaning where it was more than a 6, and that's what we're dealing over here. So and that's why Rav Shlakesh says, okay, the deal is off. You cheated hegdish by more than a 6. The deal is off. You have to make minator. You have to make up the difference. You can't cheat hegdish. Ela Bitamek. So Rabbi Yochanan say that it's only midrabanan that you have to make up the difference. Of Yonah, according to Rav Yonah, right? Rav Yonah said it on Hekish. Rav Yomi said it on Karka, but maybe not on Hekish. But according to Rav Yonah said that Rav Yochanan said that when it comes to Hekish, if it's more than a 6, it's bitul mekach. That means that Rav Yonah said, according to Rav Yochanan, how could Rav Yochanan say you only have to make up the difference midrabanan? According to Rav Yonah's interpretation of Rav Yochanan, even Rabbi Yochanan says that if it's bitul mekach by hektish, meaning if you cheated hektish by more than a 6, the whole deal is off. Midaraisa, bitul mekach. So that's the kasha. How would this work? So if what Rabbi Yochanan said is, if Rabbi Yonah is correct in what he said in Rabbi Yochanan, we have a problem. How could Rabbi Yochanan say over here that that the bitul mekach, that if you exchange it, right, you exchange yasachula, and if you exchange B for A was kadosh and he had a mum, and you exchange B for A, meaning you said, I'm mechalel A on B, it works, but you should make up the difference or Rabbanan. What do you mean it works? If the cheating was by more than a 6, it shouldn't work at all unless you make up the difference. It's midaraisa, you have to make up the difference. So the Gemara's answer is no. Yeah, we are talking about where it's cheating by more than a 6. We're going to switch around Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish shita, meaning Rabbi Yochanan says that you have to make up the difference to Araisa. because it's only kasha according to Rav Yonah. According to Rav Yirmiyah's interpretation of Rav Yochanan, we said at the top of the page, Rav Yirmiyah said that Rav Yochanan said it on karka. On karka, there is cheating. When karka went to, Reuben and Shimon had a transaction of karka, and one cheated the other by more than a sixth, then Rabbi Yochanan says the deal is off. On karka, there is bittul mekach, but not on hegdish. So that's what Rav Yirmiyah said. But according to Rav Yonah, that Rabbi Yochanan said is halacha even on hegdish, and certainly on karka. He said it even on hegdish that more than a sixth is bittul mekach. So according to him, the only way out of this is to say that Rabbi Yochanan goes with the sheet that midaraisa, since it's bittul mekach, you have to make up the difference. According to Rish Lakish, it's only Rabbanan. What's the machlokas here? Again, we're talking about where you exchange. You said I want animal A of hektish, which has a mum now. Between Mechala and B, and B is worth only $50, not $100. So the cheating is by more than a sixth, right? The cheating by more than a sixth. So Rabbi Yochanan will say, well, bittul mekach, that's no good. You got to make up the difference. You can't cheat hekish by that. Midaraisa, that's how Rabbi Yonah is interpreting Rabbi Yochanan. And according to Reish Lakish, it's only Drabanan. It's only Drabanan. Midrabanan, you have to make up the difference, but you don't have to make the difference of the Minatar. Mike, what's the machlokas? But Shmuel. Shmuel's halach that we mentioned before. Damar Shmuel, hektish shava mana. Hektish was worth $100. Shechil al shava pruta. That you're machal even from. You said before, if you have a ladder, let's say it costs $100, and you exchange it for a piece of wood, which is worth a pruta, muchulal. Mar is later Shmuel. One holds a Shmuel. Maybe that would be Rish Lakish. He holds a Shmuel. It's really muchulal. Midrabanan, you should make up the difference. Mar less later Shmuel. But Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold the Shmuel. Rabbi Yochanan says minator. It's bittul mekach. That's one way. Or you buy some everybody holds the Shmuel's halach. The question is it lachatchila b'di'evet? What's the machlok? Shmuel says if you did it, okay, b'di'evet, it's done. But lachatchila you shouldn't do it. That would be Rabbi Yochanan, and Rish Lakish will say no. Even lachatchila you could also do it because it's done. It's muchalal even on a pruta. But the Rabbanan said you should make up the difference. That would be Rish Lakish, according to the way we turned around Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. Or I could tell you no. Don't turn it around. Read the mission the way we read it. The Yasachul Dvar Torah, but Rabbi Yochanan says Yasachul Dvar Torah, and Rish Lakish says no, even in Minatorah. What's going on? And we're talking about the cheating was only a sixth. When I exchanged animal A for animal B, right? The cheating animal A was worth $100, and let's say animal B was worth what does it come out to be? 83 and a third. The cheating was only a sixth exactly. So what's going on over here? Why does Rabbi Yochanan say it's only Rabbanan, you have to make it up, and Rish Lakish says even at a Raisa? What's going on? How could you, if it's only if they no, we said everybody says our Mishnah says no, there's no no there. Karka and Barim Shtaris and Kadeshus. So there's no no, what's going on? The machlokas between Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan is in Rav Chisda's halacha. What does Rav Chisda say? The Amar my ein lamano ein b'torasanav. Rav Chisda says when our Mishnah says eil grom shein lamano and it talks about hegdish, it doesn't mean that you could cheat hegdish by wherever you want and there is no repercussions. It's mukulal. He says there's no rule of fraud there. What are the rules of fraud of ona? Less than a six, you're mochel. A six, you got to return the difference. The six. More than a six, the whole deal's off. There's no no there at all. You can't even cheat hegdish by a penny. That's what he means. Ein lamano. Rav Chisda says, Mike, Rav Chisda, there's no no at all. There's no no. You can't cheat hegdish at all. That's what it means. On a base now. Even less than no goes back. You can't mochel at all. What is really bittul mekach? Mekach tos means it's a mistake. If I went to you and I said, what are you giving me in that box? You're selling me a shirt? Okay, fine. Turns out there's a pair of pants there. Well, it's a mekach tos. It's a mistake, right? The whole thing is a mistake when it comes to that's what Rav Chisda learns. So therefore, Reish Lakish says, D'oraisa, you got to give it back, right? If you cheated hegdish by even a little bit, even a penny, you got to make up the difference. In Minatorah, he holds like Rav Chisda. Ma'ilama ain't b'tarsana. And Rabbi Yochanan says no. Rabbi Yochanan says there is a din of anah there, and what except by hegdish it doesn't apply. Hegdish doesn't apply when it's exactly a six. When it's more than a six, maybe it does. According to Rabbi Yochanan, again, not lahalocha lemaisa, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, if it's exactly a six, that's the rule of our Mishnah. Ein lahem. Oh no, there's no rule of a six. More than a six, maybe yes. Okay, so what do you mean? That's what you mean. Rav Chisda says that there's no no there at all, meaning that you can't cheat hegdish even by a penny. Meisvei, ribis v'ono lehegyot. There's a rule of ribis, right? You can't take usury, right? That's going to be the next parak is all going to be about usury. You can't cheat. You can't take interest. There's ribis v'ono when it comes to hegyot, cheating. Ain't ribis v'ono lehegdish. There's no rule of ribis v'ono when it comes to hegdish. In other words, if you cheat, if hegdish took ribis, there's not a problem. Or ono, mashma, there's no rules of ono. Okay, but it's there's no ribis v'ono lehegdish, meaning that you could cheat. There's no hegdish could take ribis and hegdish could take ono. Or if you take ribis from hegdish or ono from hegdish, there's no rules. There's no rules about that. Mashma that it's not osir. Says who says that's a pshat that it's not osir? Mi ali masis is this any better than the Mishnah do kim the v'torah ono? That we said according to Rav Chisda means not that there's no rules of ono that you could cheat hegdish, just the opposite. You can't cheat hegdish even by a penny. The rules of ono of less than a sixth, the sixth and more than six don't apply to hegdish. You can't even cheat hegdish at all. So that's the machlokas there. So we have different ways to interpret what's the rule by hegdish. Is there ono or not? According to Rav Chisda, you can't cheat even by a penny. According to the Pashut Pshat in our Mishnah, that's the halacha that no, there's no rules of ono. If hegdish took a lot of money, or you cheated hegdish, or hegdish cheated you, there's no rules of ono there at all. Like this. Wait a minute. If you say ein ribis v'din ono lehegdish, that's what you mean. The sefer there says zeh chomer behegyot in behegdish. This is a stringency that a commoner has over hegdish. What's the stringency? That there is a rule of ono here, right? There's a rule of ono when it comes to cheating other people, but by hegdish not. What do you mean there's more hegdish? Why is there cheating? Why is there, according to what you're saying now, the rules of hegdish of ono are more stringent because you can't even cheat hegdish by a penny, not by a sixth, even by a penny not. The answer is, oh, that's going on ribis. On ribis, the rules of hegdish are more stringent than that of hegdish. Why? Because by ribis, we say that you can't take usury at all. When I lend you $100, I can't demand back $101 or $102. But right, that's the rules of hegdish. When it comes to hegdish, there is no rules of hegdish. It's going on ribis, not by ono. When you say it's on chomer behegdish, that's the chomer, not on ono, because it's on ribis. Why? Because by ono, the rules of hegdish are more stringent. So listening now means that chomer behegdish would be hegdish. So why don't you say also, this is a chomer that hegdish has over hegdish. What's the chomer that hegdish over hegdish? Hegdish, you could cheat up to a sixth is mocho. A sixth, the money goes back, right? And if it's more than a sixth, the deal's off. When it comes to hegdish, you can't even cheat it by a penny. That's a chomer that hegdish has over hegdish. No, that's going on no. Meaning, when it comes to ribis, the rules of commoner are more stringent than that of hegdish. Hegdish is no ribis. By commoners, there is a rule of hegdish. There is a rule of ribis. When it comes to hegdish, the rules of hegdish are more chomer because you can't even cheat hegdish by a penny. So how could you say that? Where do you have a chomer of hegdish over hegdish? And our Gemara reads v'sulo. This is the only case. Where do you have a case of the hegdish that's more chomer than hegdish? Ribis. That's an example of chomer of hegdish over hegdish. Tosas and Bach and Tosas takes out the sulo because there are other cases in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, for example, a hegdish has a rule of tashlumi kefel and arba v'chamisha and a shemachidim has to swear, etc. And hegdish doesn't. Okay, so there are others too, but there are very few cases where hegdish is more chomerdik than hegdish. So this bishlam is that chomer hegdish. You want to say that, right? Because head rules of hegdish that you want to mention because there are very few cases that the hegdish has a chomer over hegdish. Right? El hegdish by hegdish zeh chomer v'sulo. What do you want to say? Oh, here's a chomer that hegdish has over hegdish. Why? Hegdish you can't even cheat by a penny, whereas a hegdish you can cheat up to a sixth, right? Is that the only chomer that hegdish has over hegdish? There's meila. There's a million other halachas. Hegdish is holy stuff. There's all kinds of rules that apply to hegdish don't apply to chomer v'sulo. So you can't say, oh, here's a chomer that hegdish has over hegdish. You know what the chomer is? There's no, you can't even cheat by a penny. That's the only one. There's many other cases of that. So it's not proper to say here's a chomer that hegdish has over hegdish. Okay, so that's how we're interpreting pshat in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is Rav Chisda's opinion that there's no din of ono, you can't even cheat by a penny. But that's not the regular pshat. The regular pshat is by hegdish there is no rules of ono. And not only don't you have to return a 6, but even not according to Rabbi Yochanan, according to others, even if it's more than a 6, there's no rules of fraud when it comes to Hegdish. Ribis, the Hegdish, Hechidami. Now, why the Svara of Hegdish will explain why these other things don't apply. But when we talk about Ondah, there's a Svara to it too, that Karka has no fixed value, and Hektish also, you're not cheating anybody, and the Rebbeinu Shalom knows what's going on. You're not cheating some person. So that's the Svara why there is no cheating when it comes to Onah. But also, we said it's based on the psukim, right? It's the whole idea is huh? Well, the yad is that, and reach, and again, it has to be from another person, right? But you have to cheat a person. So it's based on a pasuk, but there's a svara there too. And we'll see the same thing when it comes to the other halachas in the Mishnah also that don't apply. That you see, we say hegdish, we say that avodim stars karka and hegdish. There's no rules of onah, and the other things also would be psukim. But there's a svara to it over here too. When Rav Yochanan says, according to Rav Yonah and Rav Yirmiyah, that there is bittul mekach, maybe there's no onah 1/6, but there is bittul mekach based on this svara that you're cheating somebody. Okay. Bittul mekach means if it's more than a 6, that the whole deal is off. Right.
Then the second animal
is not kodesh. Correct. It's not hekdesh at all. Minatorah was work. Right. That's right. Rashi said before. Then you could exchange it. For example, a person says, if I say harezim chulela salzu, right? If the animal, for example, let's say an animal did not have a mum, and I said I'm exchanging this for that, doesn't work at all. That doesn't work at all because you can't do that. It's not that it doesn't work, but you have to make up the difference Torah. That's the point. That there is bittul mekach there if you cheated by more. But so that was the child. Was it only if it's more than a 6 or it's even by a 6? You have to make up the difference. No, it's not bittul mekach exactly, but the idea is that you can't get away with, Torah you can't get away with. Yeah. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. You mentioned that when it comes to Hegdish, there's no rule of ribbis, right? How do you have ribbis when it comes to Hegdish anyway? What's the case? How do you have ribbis when it comes to Hegdish? He says we're ribbis to Hegdish Echidami. How can you have a case? So let's say the Gizber of Hegdish lent $100 to somebody, and he says, "Pay me back 120. I'm doing it all for the shul, for the Hegdish. I'm not doing it for my personal benefit. I'm doing it for the shul. That's not really Hegdish. Why? When the Gizber did that, he doesn't have permission to do that. And as soon as he was Moel, what the rule is? The $100 that he gave is chulin because he was Moel b'Hegdish, and he himself owes the Beis Hamikdash. He has to bring a carbon and pay another 1/5 on top of that. But the money itself is chulin, so it's not ribbis of Hegdish. Below Moel Gizber, but even Shemoel Gizber, Yotzam also chulin. It's not chulin. Avol Hegdish. He owes them. The Gizber owes the money, but it's Hegdish. It's not. I'll tell you how you can have ribbis. You're going shekibul of lasapik siltos me'arba of supplier. Here's what happened: a supplier agreed, or normally when you supply produce to the basement, you kind of produce like wine and oil that they need for the korbanos. So you're normally when you supply somebody else, let's say okay, I'll give you 4 bushels to the dollar. I'll put 4 bushels to the dollar. And then it got more expensive. But as he was supplying it to somebody else, not to Hegdish, and it's now 3 bushels to the dollar, it's more expensive. That's already like ribbis. You shouldn't do that until there's a fixed price in the market. But for the Beis Hamikdash, you're allowed to. So let's say a supplier said to the Beis Hamikdash, I'll supply 4 bushels to the dollar, and then it's 3 bushels to the dollar. He still has to supply the 4. Now it's 3 bushels to the dollar, meaning the bushels instead of $25 a bushel is now 33 1/3 a bushel. When it was 4 bushels to the dollar, and now it's 3. He's got to give the 4, right? Even though it's more expensive now, so he's losing out too bad. When it comes to Hegdish, it's okay. When it comes to an individual, you can't do that. It's like rebate. But for basically, you're allowed to. Let's say he agreed at 3, and now it's 4 bushels to the dollar. Misapik me'arba, right? He still has to give, right? He said, I'll give 3 bushels to the dollar, and now there's 4 bushels dollar. He has to give the 4. He always has to give the 4, whether it went down or went up in price. Hegdish has the upper hand, so you always have to be good with it. So where Hegdish is no ribbis there. Rapapa says on a different case. I'll show you it could be ribbis. Here we're talking about where when they're building the base of Mikdash, let's say the base of Mikdash, there's things that have to be built, wood and stone and things like that. So you give it to a craftsman. Well, the craftsman might sit on the wood if it's Kodesh, or might sit on the stone, or might shelter under it and get some pleasure from it. So he's going to have enough from Hekdesh. So what they did was the raw materials were always in a state of chulin, meaning either the Gizbar or whoever's in charge of the base of Mikdash took it on consignment from a supplier, from a wood or stone supplier, and wasn't makdish it until it was actually put into the building. You understand? So he didn't take some product of Hegdish and give it to the craftsman to do. He gave it to them when it was still chulin. Either he took it on account from a supplier, or or somebody donated the stone. Let's say some rich Jew from Los Angeles donated the stone, right? Donated the wood. So he donated. It wasn't Kodesh yet. Then they worked on it. So that's what he means over here. The Avnei Binyanas with the stones. They built it and they constructed it and they did all the work, whether it was on the wood or the stone, and they did that while it was chol. And then they were makdish it. So there you could have an increase in value. You could say it was worth X amount when he gave it to him. It's worth more now, and we're not worried about ribbis. Whereas for an individual, that would be considered ribbis if it was between 2 commoners. So we said these 4 things of avodim. What do you say? The 4 things: karka, avodim, shtaros, karka, and nekdeshos. There is no ono there. We said based on the pasuk and the svaras, and there are different opinions. There's no ono, but is there bittul mekach that we had a machlokus about? And then we said there's no rule of tashlumei kefil. Why? Why is there no kefil? Pasuk says when it comes to a shomer, it says I'll call bar pesha, and anything that he was negligent, klal, anything. That's the general thing. I'll show chamor al sel salma on these individual things, right? On the seh, remember, you're not sure why it said that, but the Gemara wasn't always sure, but it said shor chamor sen salma on any of these individual items, whether it's an animal or a piece of clothing, whatever. Prat, that's an individual thing. That's a specification. You have a generalization of specification. Then it's I'll call of Ada Asher Yamar Kuuzeh, and then it says V'nikra Balabayis Elokim. It says over there V'nikra Balabayis Elokim when it comes to the Shor Mechinam, which means the Shvua. So on these things you make a Shvua. Asher Yamar Chazar Kol. So Klal Par Klal. We have a Klal Par Klal. A generalization, specification, generalization. Problem 4 is something which is movable. We go for money, its intrinsic value. I've called up we go for moment. So what are the rules of that a shomer chinim has to swear that he wasn't negligent on? He wasn't negligent only on something which is movable and has intrinsic value. Yatsa karka shem talpin, that excludes karka which is not movable. Yatsa bottom shukla cars. Avanim are compared to karka, so there's no, you don't make a shvur there. Yatsa shtaras, excluding stars, even though they're moving, they don't have no intrinsic values. We said they're only for proof, unless you're using the paper itself, the star, for a lid cover, or using it for some purpose, or it's got some value to it. Hekdeshus, amarakra, re'eu below hekdesh. Only your neighbor or your associate, the other person there, your friend, below shalek not shalek. So therefore, these things don't apply. The rule of making a shvua, that a shomer chinim only makes a shvua on something which is movable and has intrinsic value, excluding karka, avodim, shtaros, and hegdish, because it says re'eu below shel hegdish. Only on your associate, your friend, your friend below shel hegdish. There's no dal hey there also. My time once there's no rule of kefil, you can't have a rule of of 3 or 4. Obviously, the 4 or 5 is only on animals anyway. It doesn't apply to karka, shtaros, and avodim. It's only on shore and set, not on anything else. Shemachinam and an issue. So he said Shemachinam doesn't swear on it, right? Doesn't swear on it. So first, that right doesn't have to swear. There's no rule of kefil. You see, I mentioned before. I was saying before that in the previous piece I was talking about the Shemachinam doesn't swear. I'm mistaken about that. Previous piece was talking about that he doesn't pay kefil. He says, "I'll call the bar pesha, I'll show al chamor, I'll sell sama, I'll show al chamor, I'll sell sama, call that shem akuzeh." You're really talking about towing tanis ganav, or if he himself is a ganav. Yishalim shnaim l'reu. That's the kefil we're talking about. And it's the previous piece that we talked about. Non immediately turn rabban al called bar pesha. There, the klal u'paro klal is going on the idea of that he has to pay kefil if it was towing tanis ganav, if he claimed that it was stolen and it turned out he was the ganav, or if he actually stole it, he has to pay kefil, but not on these things. Kefil is only on a movable and intrinsic value, and not on hegdish, because it says re'ehu below. It says pasuk says yishalom shnayim l're'ehu. Okay, you don't pay hegdish shnayim. Then tashlumi dal v'hei, because there's no kefil. And now we're talking about this piece is speaking about the piece up to now, speaking about Shemachinam doesn't swear. Menanimili. How do you know Shemachinam doesn't swear? Because that first parsha is talking about Shemachinam. Ki yitain ish over yehu. You give somebody else, another person. That's a general thing. You give them anything. Klal. Kesav kalim. That's individual thing. Prat. And then the sign says lishmor, to guard. Going to base ish, right? Chasav kal lishmor, anything to wash. Kal parakal yadan kemperat. It's got to be like the prat before again, the same idea. That where does the Shemachinam swear? Now we're talking about the Shemachinam swearing, not the kefil. The Shemachinam, where does he swear? Only if it's something movable and it has intrinsic value. I've called up Yatsu Karka, again, excluding Karka, Shem, which is not movable. Yatsu Avadim Shukshal Kars, excluding slaves, Avadim Knanim, which are compared to Karka. Yatsu Stars, excluding Karka, Shaf Bishim, even though they're movable, they have no intrinsic value. Hektish, Hekdashus, why is Hektish Amakra? Re'eu, below Shel Hektish. So again, the whole pasuk is talking about, the Shemachinam is talking about where does he have to swear? And it says, it says there, Im lo shalach yadav meleches re'ehu. We're not talking about the Yishalim Shnaim l're'ehu. That was the first pasuk that was quoted before, which is actually later on, and this is pasuk Ches. The other pasuk is Zion. Im lo shalach yadav meleches re'ehu. That's the re'ehu we're talking about, excluding hegdish, that you don't have to swear there. No sechach in a mishalim. A shomer sacher doesn't have to pay. A shomer sacher normally pays on what? Genev and aveda. So it was Genev and aveda here, he doesn't pay. But I mean, how do we know? The Torah Banat. Again, the next parsha is ki yitein ish al re'ehu chamor shor sev chol behema lishmor umeis on nishba ein roeh shvuas Hashem. He has to swear. Here he says befavorish, you have to swear. Moshel yadav lex re'ehu l'kabav le'shalom. I'm going to be Genev Meimo Yishalom, he has to pay. Says again, this parsha starts with Hitin Shareyu. That's the klal. Hitin Shareyu, not the first pasuk of Hitin Shareyu Kesav Kel Lishmor, which is Shemachinam, but the second parsha pasuk test. Hitin Shareyu Chamor Shor. They're talking about Shomer Sacher. Here's a klal. Hitin Shareyu anything. Chamor Shor se prat. That's the individual things. Chol Behema again the klal Lishmor. Chazav Klal Chol Behema Lishmor. Chazav Klal Klal Parakal Yadam Prat. Ma Prat before Shem Tat Mom. And again, the Shomer Sacher only pays for Genev and Aveda if it's a davar metaltal guf moment. Afkal davar metaltal guf moment. Again, excluding karka, yatsu karka shem metaltal, yatsu avadim shukshal karka, excluding avadim which are compared to karka, yatsu shtaris, excluding shtar, shafa pisha metaltalin, even though they are metaltalin, shtar, and guf moment, there's no intrinsic value because it's only for raya, unless again you're using it for a lid cover. Hekdesh samakar re'eu below shel hekdesh. Again, all these psukim, it says re'eu. It says re'eu when it comes to kefel. It says re'eu when it comes to shemachinam, because it says re'eu when it comes to shemasachar. Shemasachar that we're talking about here is that he doesn't have to pay if it was lost or stolen. Says the Gemara now going on at the bottom, 2 lines from the bottom page. Shemachinam eno nishba v'raminu. What do you mean shemachinam doesn't have to swear? Remember, everybody used to pay the shekels and azar, and they sent their money in from all over the world. They sent their money in the basement. Let's say they sent the money, and it was stolen or lost. If the kohanim in the basement are already taken, it's separated from the new funds for the karbanos, And now, and they're claiming now that the who sent the money, the shluchim said it was stolen from us or it was lost. Nishban, they swear, these shluchim swear legizbaran to the treasure of Hegdish, right? If it was our, but why? The imlav nishman lebnei ir. Why? Because if they already truma, so that when they take the trumas for the money, they take on behalf of all the people, not only people whose money is here already, but even the people who sent the money and it's on the way, or they sent the money and it was lost or stolen, they're included too. They just have to swear that they weren't negligent, that it was really lost or stolen beyond their control, because they're apparently shamachinam. Lav, and if they hadn't yet determined the trumas, then they're responsible to the people who sent the money. They came from Salonika or wherever they sent their money in. They got to pay. They have to swear to the treasurers of the city who sent the money in. And then the people of the city have to send other money because it was lost or stolen. It wasn't yet the base of Hamikdash's responsibility. Nimsu, let's say the money that was lost was found, or if it was stolen, Shechzirim Haganav, they returned it. Then they're both shakal. Either the new money that they sent into the replacement money and the original money is all shkalim hain. They don't count for. You can't say, oh, it's for the next year. Since we sent in double, you found the money that was lost and we sent in new money. It's all for that year. It doesn't count for the next year. But the point of what do you hear is that the Shamichinim swears. These are Shamichinim, and he swears, even though it's hektish. We're talking about here a hired shluchim that they are hired. Vinishborn lito scharan. We just said if they're hired also, they're not responsible for Geneva and Aveda if this is Kodshim, Hegdish. The answer is they swear to get their paycheck. Right? That's what they're swearing. They weren't negligent. What do you mean they swear to the Gizbaran? They're getting paid for the Bnei Year. Those are the people who hired them. They're in Salonika or Haifa, wherever they sent the money from. It should be Bnei Year miboile. You swear to the people that sent you, like the mayor or the finance director in Salonika, whoever sent the money in the presence of the Gizbarn, so the Gizbarn should not think that there's collusion over here. Maybe it's collusion. You guys sent them. You say the mayor will say we sent the money in, and the shluchim will say we lost it. So they should be included in everybody else's money. So they shouldn't be suspected of collusion. Inami, or you say they want to be called. They don't want to be called negligent people, right? It says it was stolen or lost, right? He's chayv to pay for that. He's chayv if it's lost or stolen. You'll say they don't have to pay. Why? Because it's hegdish, and they're part of on hegdish, as we just said, they're excluded from paying for geneva if it's hegdish. But a grayu miyah lives it, but they should lose their paycheck. You shouldn't have to pay them. They're not responsible for the Geneva and Aveda because it's Hegdish, but they should lose their paycheck. Amrava Nignu Blissamazuyan of the Shatavas Minasabayam. Here it's not a regular Geneva and Aveda. Here it was beyond their control. It was an accident. It was stolen by armed robbers, or the ships from Salonika to Israel sunk or whatever. It was something that was beyond their control, and therefore they should still be paid. He says, oh, it's speaking about charger you get. They're still chayiv. If they're chayiv b'achrayas, meaning it's their responsibility, then there is no. No, it's not the issue over here. Rashi says that's probably extra. It should have been Binishbarle, but you swear on that. Remember, Rav Shimon said in the Mishnah, if it's something that they're chayiv and achrayas, you do swear on that, even though it's hegdish. So Gemara says, that's fine. Before they took the truma, so then there's achrayas, mishnitra truma. But if once the Gizbar of the Beis Hamikdash took the shekels and used it already, and they gave it for those people too, so there's no more achrayas. So kachim shein achrayas and denu. The Tanya terminal of it. When they take the truma from the new coins there, they take it on what's lost and what was collected on the way and what people are going to give. But so these people are not responsible anymore. Elo Rav Lazar, really, let's go back to the original idea. Not that these shluchim were shomer sacher, but they're really shemachinam. They were shemachinam, and really, we said of hegdish you don't have to swear. Shemachinam doesn't swear. Shomer sacher doesn't have to pay, lost or stolen. But this shvua, you know what the shvua is? Shvua is in tekanos chachami shelo yebenad mezalzim like deishas. It's a special tekanos chacham. You're right. Minat Torah there is no shvua, but it's a special tekanos chacham that people should not make a mistake and be mezalzim and treat the hekdeshos lightly. All right, we'll pick him here tomorrow. Moedim l'simchat, everybody.